Maya Johnson pressed her face against the small window of the research station and watched the massive ships descend from the black sky. She had never seen anything like them before. The vessels were sleek and sharp like crystalline daggers, cutting through space, and they moved with purpose toward the small colony of New Haven. "Get to the emergency shelters now," came the crackling voice over the communication system. "All civilians report to designated safe zones immediately." Mia looked at her computer screen where months of botanical research data scrolled past. She was 19 years old and had been working on New Haven for 6 months, studying the unique plant life that grew on this outer rim world. The plants here could potentially solve food shortages back on Earth, but she needed more time to complete her analysis. The other researchers in the station were already running toward the exits, grabbing whatever personal items they could carry. Dr. Martinez, the senior botanist, stopped at Maya's workstation. "Come on, Maya, we have to go right now." Maya shook her head. "I need to send this data back to Earth first. If something happens to us, at least the research will survive." "There's no time for that. Those ships are not friendly." Maya watched Dr. Martinez run toward the shelter tunnels with the others. She turned back to her computer and began the emergency data transmission protocol. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as she compressed years of research into a single data package. Outside, the alien ships grew larger and larger. The first ship landed with a sound like breaking glass. Maya could see strange figures moving around outside, but she kept working on her transmission. The data was uploading. Slowly, only 60% complete. She needed more time. A loud crash echoed through the research station. Something was breaking down the main doors. Maya heard footsteps that did not sound human. They were too heavy, too rhythmic, like machinery walking, but still she worked on her transmission. "Soft flesh creatures, present yourselves for inspection," came a voice that sounded like rocks grinding together. The words were in perfect English, which surprised Maya. How did these aliens know human languages? Maya heard screaming from the other parts of the station. Her data transmission reached 80%. She typed quickly, adding notes about the alien arrival, the ship designs, anything that might help Earth understand what was happening. The footsteps were getting closer to her laboratory. Maya could hear doors being torn from their hinges as the aliens searched room by room. Her transmission hit 90%. A massive crystalline hand punched through her laboratory door. The creature that stepped through was unlike anything Maya had ever imagined. It stood nearly 8 feet tall and looked like it was made of living crystal. Its body was translucent blue-green, and sharp edges jutted from its arms and shoulders. When it moved, light reflected off its surface in rainbow patterns. "You did not respond to the command," the creature said. Its voice came from somewhere inside its crystal body. "All soft flesh must present for inspection." Maya's transmission reached 95%. She kept typing, not looking at the alien. "I'm finishing something important." "Important." The creature made a sound like breaking ice. "Soft flesh considers its activities important." "Very important," Maya said. Her transmission hit 98%. "This research could save millions of lives." The alien moved closer. Maya could see other similar creatures behind it in the hallway. They all had the same crystalline appearance, but different sizes and slightly different colors. Some were pale blue, others were green or purple. "I am HFY Klex of the Zephyrian Confederation," the creature said. "You will cease this activity and submit to processing." Maya's transmission reached 100%. The data was safely sent to Earth. She finally looked up at HFY Klex. "Processing for what?" "Your species will be evaluated for potential usefulness to the Confederation. Those who show promise may earn basic rights. Those who do not will serve in whatever capacity we determine appropriate." Maya stood up slowly. Now that her research was safe, she could focus on what was happening. "You're taking us prisoner." "We are determining your value," HFY Klex said. "Your physical scans indicate inferior strength, slow reflexes, and fragile construction. However, the Confederation is generous. All species receive opportunity to prove themselves worthy of inclusion, and if we're not worthy, then you serve in the capacity for which you are best suited. War Prime Klex gestured with one crystalline arm, and two smaller Zephyrians entered the laboratory. They carried restraining devices that looked like metallic ribbons. Maya did not resist as they bound her hands behind her back. She was studying everything, their technology, their movements, their attitudes as they marched her through the research station. Maya saw other humans being processed in the same way. Some were crying, others were angry, but most looked confused and terrified. Maya recognized several colonists from the agricultural domes and mining operations. They loaded the humans into the belly of one of the alien ships. The interior was all sharp angles and crystal surfaces that glowed with soft light. Maya found herself sitting next to Carl Williams, a mining engineer she had met a few times at the colony social gatherings. "What do you think they want with us?" Carl whispered. Maya looked around at the Zephyrian guards. They were not paying close attention to the human prisoners, which suggested they did not consider humans much of a threat. They mentioned evaluation. "And proving ourselves worthy. Sounds like some kind of test." "What kind of test?" "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out everything I can before we get there." The ship lifted off with a sensation like being pressed down into their seats. Maya watched through a small window as New Haven grew smaller and smaller below them. Soon they were in space, and she could see the other Zephyrian ships forming a small fleet. During the journey, Maya listened to the conversations between their captors. The Zephyrians spoke in their own language most of the time, but occasionally switched to English when referring to their human cargo. Maya learned that they were taking the humans to something called the Apex Arena, a mobile facility where new species were tested. "The soft flesh will provide brief entertainment before failing," one guard said to another. "Their scans show they possess no significant combat capabilities. War Prime Klex believes they may have some minor value as technical workers if they survive the initial trials," replied the other guard. "Unlikely. Most soft flesh species break quickly in the arena." Maya filed this information away. The arena was some kind of combat testing ground, and the Zephyrians expected humans to fail quickly. This meant they would underestimate human capabilities, which could be an advantage if she could figure out how to use it. After several hours of travel, Maya saw their destination appear in the distance. The Apex Arena was enormous, a rotating structure that looked like several stadiums connected together and spinning slowly in space. Ships of many different designs were docked around its perimeter. "Prepare the soft flesh for transfer, War Prime," Klex commanded. "The arena master will want to begin evaluation procedures immediately." Maya took a deep breath as their ship approached the docking bay. Whatever was about to happen, she would face it with her eyes open and her mind sharp. The research data was safely transmitted to Earth. Now she had a new mission: survive long enough to learn everything she could about these aliens and their confederation. As the docking clamps engaged with a metallic clang, Maya Johnson prepared to enter the Apex Arena. The docking bay doors hissed open, and Maya felt artificial gravity pull at her feet as she stepped onto the arena station. The air smelled metallic and strange, filled with scents she could not identify. Around her, the other human prisoners moved in a tight group, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. Maya looked up at the massive ceiling that curved away in both directions. The arena station was huge, much larger than she had realized from outside. Corridors branched off in multiple directions, and she could hear sounds echoing from far away: roars, mechanical noises, and what might have been cheering crowds. "Move forward, soft flesh," commanded a Zephyrian guard. "Processing begins immediately." They marched down a wide corridor lined with viewing windows. Through the glass, Maya saw other sections of the station. In one area, massive creatures that looked like walking boulders lifted heavy equipment. In another, snake-like beings with multiple arms worked on complex machinery. The diversity of alien life was overwhelming. The processing center was a large circular room with scanning equipment built into the walls. Maya watched as each human was made to stand in the center while beams of light moved up and down their bodies. When her turn came, she stood still and observed the scanning process carefully. The beams felt warm against her skin and made a humming sound as they analyzed her. On screens around the room, data appeared in alien symbols that she could not read. The Zephyrian technicians made notes on handheld devices. Inferior muscle density, one technician said to another in English. Slow reflexes compared to standard galactic species. Fragile bone structure, limited natural weapons. What about cognitive function? Asked the second technician. Within normal parameters for soft flesh species, nothing exceptional detected. Maya filed this information away. The scanners could measure physical capabilities but apparently could not accurately assess human intelligence or creativity. This was useful to know. After processing, the humans were led to a holding area that looked like a cross between a prison and a dormitory. The walls were made of some kind of smooth metal, and sleeping platforms extended from the walls in neat rows. Other beings from different species occupied some of the platforms, all looking defeated and scared. Maya was assigned a sleeping platform next to an older woman with graying hair who had been captured from a different research station. The woman introduced herself as Dr. Helen Parker, a xenobiologist who had been studying alien plant samples when the Zephyrians arrived at her colony. "How long have you been here?" Maya asked quietly. 3 days, Helen replied. "I've been trying to understand how this place works. From what I can tell, this arena operates under some kind of ancient Confederation law. New species have to prove their worth through combat trials. Combat trials. Gladiator fights, basically. I've watched some of them through the viewing screens in the common area. Most of the trials end badly for the newcomers." Maya looked around the holding area. She counted representatives from at least 6 different species, all recent arrivals based on their confused and frightened expressions. Near the back wall, she saw a group of tall, thin beings with pale blue skin who moved gracefully despite their obvious distress. "Who are they?" Maya asked, pointing toward the blue-skinned aliens. "Milani traders," Helen said. "They were captured when their merchant ship tried to establish trade relations with the Confederation. Very peaceful people. I don't think they'll do well in combat trials." "What about those ones?" Maya indicated a group of reptilian creatures with thick scales and powerful-looking tails. "Sisk warriors from the outer systems. They're actually fighters by nature, but even they seem worried about whatever they're facing here." Maya studied the different groups carefully. If the reptilian warriors were concerned, then the combat trials must be extremely dangerous. She needed to learn more about how the arena system worked. Over the next few hours, Maya explored the holding area and talked to beings from different species. Most could communicate in the common galactic language, which she was picking up quickly. The pattern that emerged was always the same. Species were captured or arrived seeking contact with the Confederation, then were forced into combat trials to determine their value. "The Arena Master decides everything," explained one of the Milani traders in broken English. "He chooses who fights what. Most new species get group trials first, but sometimes he makes examples. Examples of what? Species he thinks are especially weak. He puts them against veteran gladiators to show the crowd how superior Confederation species are." Maya felt a chill. Based on the Zephyrians' assessment of human physical capabilities, they probably considered her species especially weak. That could mean trouble. The common area Helen had mentioned turned out to be a larger room with several viewing screens showing different parts of the arena. Maya positioned herself where she could watch the screens while appearing to be resting. What she saw made her understand the true nature of their situation. The arena had multiple combat zones, each designed for different types of fights. Some were simple circular platforms, others had obstacles and environmental hazards. The crowds watching were entirely made up of Confederation species, Zephyrians, massive bear-like creatures, beings that looked like living metal, and dozens of other types. Maya watched several fights and began to see patterns. The gladiators were all large, powerful beings who relied primarily on their natural physical advantages. The big ones used strength, the fast ones used speed, the armored ones used defense. but none of them seemed to think tactically beyond basic instinct. More importantly, Maya noticed something about the crowds. They loved displays of overwhelming power, but they became bored when fights followed predictable patterns. They cheered loudest when something unexpected happened. Maya Johnson, human designation 7 Alpha, came an announcement through speakers in the ceiling. Report to Arena Master Vorth for trial assignment. The other prisoners looked at Maya with sympathy. Helen grabbed her arm. Be careful, don't do anything to anger him. Sometimes cooperation can buy you better placement. Maya stood up and walked toward the exit where 2 guards were waiting. As she left the holding area, she could feel the eyes of all the other prisoners following her. She had become their test case. If the humans could survive their trials, it might give the others hope. The guards led her through corridors that gradually became more ornate and impressive. The walls changed from plain metal to decorative crystal. Panels and the lighting became warmer and more sophisticated. They were clearly approaching an important area of the station. Arena Master Vorth's chamber was enormous, with a curved ceiling that showed real-time views of all the combat zones. The Arena Master himself was unlike any being Maya had seen before. He had 6 powerful arms, each ending in hands with razor-sharp claws, and his skin looked like polished black stone. When he moved, Maya could hear servos and mechanical joints, suggesting he was partially cybernetic. So this is the human specimen, Vorth said, his voice deep and resonant. Your physical scans are among the most pathetic we have recorded for any species. Maya said nothing, continuing to observe and learn. Normally, new species receive group trials against other newcomers, Vorth continued. But your people's limitations are so pronounced that I have decided to make an educational demonstration. Educational demonstration. You will face Crusher in solo combat tomorrow. He has defeated representatives from 17 different species. The crowd will learn what happens to those who are truly inferior. Maya looked up at Arena Master Vorth's multiple eyes. And if I win? Vorth made a sound like grinding metal that might have been laughter. You will not win, human. But your struggle will be entertaining before you fall. As the guards escorted Maya back to the holding area, she was already planning. Maya spent the night studying everything she could see and hear about the arena systems. While the other prisoners slept, she positioned herself near the viewing screens and watched recordings of past fights. She paid special attention to how Crusher fought and how the arena itself was constructed. Crusher was exactly what his name suggested, a massive, 4-armed warrior from a species called Brutemark. He stood 9 feet tall with gray, rocky skin and muscles that bulged like boulders. In every fight Maya watched, he used the same basic strategy: charge forward, grab his opponent, and crush them with overwhelming strength. But Maya noticed something important. Crusher was not stupid, but he was predictable. He always moved in straight lines toward his opponents. He always grabbed with his upper arms first. He always positioned himself in the center of the combat zone where he had the most room to maneuver. More importantly, Maya studied the arena itself. The combat zone was surrounded by energy barriers that contained the fight, but she could see small generator nodes spaced around the perimeter. The barriers flickered slightly every few seconds, suggesting they had to refresh their power supply regularly. When morning came, Maya requested permission to visit the fighter preparation area. She told the guards it was a human religious custom to prepare for combat in a specific way. The guards found this amusing but allowed it, probably thinking it would make her eventual defeat more entertaining. The preparation area gave Maya access to the arena's technical systems. She examined the force field generators more closely and confirmed her suspicion. There was a slight delay in their refresh cycle, probably less than a second, but enough for someone small and fast to potentially exploit. Maya also studied the crowd psychology by watching how they reacted to different types of fights. The Confederation audience loved displays of power, but they became restless during long, boring battles. They cheered loudest when the unexpected happened, and they respected clever tactics even when used by species they considered inferior. Arena Master Vorth arrived at the preparation area with a group of important-looking aliens who were clearly high-ranking officials. Maya recognized several species from the viewing screens. Wealthy Confederation citizens who came to the arena for entertainment. "Behold the human specimen," Vorth announced to his guests. "Watch how quickly superior evolution defeats inferior adaptation." Maya was given basic protective gear, a simple chest plate and arm guards that felt like they were made of lightweight metal. The equipment was designed to prevent immediately fatal injuries, while still allowing for an entertaining fight. As she was led toward the combat zone, Maya could hear the crowd building in excitement. The main arena was enormous, with thousands of seats arranged in rising circles around multiple combat platforms. The noise was incredible: roars, clicks, mechanical sounds, and various forms of alien communication all blending together. Maya stepped onto the combat platform and looked up at the crowd. Beings from dozens of different species filled the seats, all of them expecting to see her fail quickly and brutally. The platform itself was about 50 feet in diameter, with a smooth metal surface and the energy barriers rising 20 feet. Into the air around the perimeter, Crusher entered from the opposite side to thunderous cheering from the crowd. Up close, he was even more intimidating than in the recordings. His 4 arms ended in hands that could easily encircle Maya's entire torso, and when he moved, the platform vibrated slightly under his weight. Arena Master Vorth's voice echoed through the arena. "Citizens of the Confederation, witness the trial of the human species. Will they prove worthy of inclusion, or will they demonstrate the superiority of proven evolutionary paths?" Crusher flexed his 4 arms and roared, a sound like falling rocks that made the crowd cheer even louder. Maya stood quietly in her starting position, appearing calm and small next to her massive opponent. The starting signal was a piercing tone that cut through all the crowd noise. Crusher immediately charged toward Maya with his arms spread wide. Intending to grab her and end the fight quickly, Maya did not run. Instead, she began talking. "Citizens of the Great Confederation," she called out in the common galactic language, her voice carrying clearly through the arena sound system. "I have a question for you." Her unexpected words caused Crusher to slow slightly in confusion. The crowd noise diminished as beings tried to understand what was happening, Maya continued, speaking while dodging Crusher's grasping arms. "Why does the mighty Confederation need to prove its strength against obviously inferior opponents?" She rolled under Crusher's reaching arms and came up on his other side, still talking. "If humans are as weak as your scans indicate, then Crusher's victory proves nothing about Confederation superiority." The crowd was now paying attention to her words instead of just waiting for violence. Maya had created an interesting puzzle for them to consider. Crusher grabbed for her again, but Maya was already moving. "But if somehow I manage to win this fight, then your selection and evaluation process is fundamentally flawed." She ducked between Crusher's legs and emerged behind him. "Either way, this fight reveals weaknesses in your system rather than strengths." The crowd noise changed. Instead of bloodthirsty cheering, Maya could hear conversations starting in the stands. She had gotten them thinking, which was exactly what she wanted. Crusher was growing frustrated with his inability to catch his small, fast opponent. He began swinging his arms wildly, trying to hit Maya even if he could not grab her. This was exactly what Maya had hoped for. She led Crusher in a specific pattern around the combat platform, always staying just out of his reach but close enough to keep him attacking aggressively. She was guiding him toward one of the force field generator nodes she had studied earlier. "The real question," Maya continued, still speaking to the crowd while avoiding Crusher's attacks, "is what happens when inferior species start using superior." Thinking, Crusher made a massive overhead swing with all 4 arms, putting his full strength behind the attack. Maya rolled aside at the last second, and Crusher's fists smashed into the platform surface right next to one of the force field generators. The impact was tremendous. Cracks spread across the platform and sparks flew from the damaged generator. Maya had been counting the seconds since the force field had last refreshed, and she timed her next move perfectly. As the barriers flickered during their refresh cycle, Maya grabbed a piece of broken platform material and threw it at another generator node. The damaged equipment sparked and failed, creating a gap in the containment system, but Maya was not trying to escape. Instead, she was turning the arena itself into her weapon, with 2 generators damaged. The force field pattern became unstable. Maya had studied the technical specifications during her preparation time, and she knew exactly what would happen next. The remaining generators would increase their power output to compensate, creating areas of dangerous energy feedback. Maya led Crusher toward one of these feedback zones. The massive warrior was so focused on trying to grab her that he did not notice the air beginning to shimmer with unstable energy. "This is what humans call tool use," Maya announced to the crowd as Crusher stumbled into the feedback zone. The energy discharge was not lethal, but it was extremely painful and disorienting. Crusher roared in pain and confusion as electrical energy coursed through his rocky skin. He staggered backward, giving Maya the opening she needed. She had not defeated him with strength or speed. She had defeated him with understanding, preparation, and the ability to turn the environment itself into her ally. The crowd fell completely silent as they realized what had just happened. Maya stood in the center of the damaged platform and looked up at Arena Master Vorth. "I believe we need to discuss new terms for humanity's relationship with the Confederation." The 5 minutes were up, but Maya's revolution was just beginning. The silence in the arena stretched for long moments as thousands of alien beings tried to process what they had just witnessed. A human, one of the weakest species their scans had ever recorded, had just defeated Crusher using methods none of them had seen before. Arena Master Vorth's 6 arms clenched into fists as he stared down at Maya. She could see the conflict in his multiple eyes, anger at the unexpected result, but also calculation about what it might mean for his position and reputation. "The human used trickery," Vorth announced to the crowd. "She damaged arena property and violated the spirit of honorable combat." Maya looked up at him with a calm expression. "I used intelligence and adaptation. Are those not valued traits in your Confederation?" Before Vorth could respond, voices began rising from the crowd. Maya could not understand all the different languages, but the tone was clear. The audience was impressed and wanted to see more. "The soft flesh speaks wisdom," called out a voice in the common language. "She turned weakness into strength through clever thinking." "Show us more human tactics," demanded another voice. "Let her prove this was not mere luck," added a third. Arena Master Vorth raised his arms for silence. Maya could see him calculating rapidly. The crowd was excited about her victory, and disappointing them could be dangerous for his position. But allowing her to continue winning could undermine the entire system he controlled. "Very well," Vorth said finally. "If the human claims her species possesses superior thinking, let her prove it against 5 of our greatest champions. If she loses even one fight, humanity accepts permanent servitude to the Confederation. If she somehow wins all 5, then we will discuss terms for full membership." Maya nodded. "I accept those conditions, but I want them witnessed by all the species representatives in this arena, not just the Confederation members." "Agreed," Vorth replied, probably thinking 5 fights would be impossible for any single being to survive. Over the following week, Maya prepared for each fight by studying her opponents and the specific combat zones where she would face them. But she was also doing something else, building alliances and gathering information about the broader political situation in the galaxy. Between fights, Maya was allowed to return to the holding area where she talked with representatives from dozens of different species. She learned that many of them were dissatisfied with the Confederation's power structure, but had never seen an alternative. Her second fight was against Stinger, a venomous insectoid creature whose natural weapons could paralyze most known species within seconds. The combat zone for this fight was a maze-like environment with multiple levels and hiding places. Maya studied the atmospheric processors that maintained air quality in the maze zone. During her preparation time, she identified several chemical compounds in the air recycling system that would be harmless to most species but would react badly with Stinger's venom production. When the fight began, Maya immediately retreated into the maze while Stinger pursued her with clicking sounds and the scrape of multiple legs on metal surfaces. But instead of simply running, Maya was leading her opponent through areas where the atmospheric processors were working hardest. She had calculated that forcing Stinger to use his venom repeatedly in areas with high concentrations of certain recycled chemicals would cause a toxic reaction in the creature's own body. After 10 minutes of chase through the maze, Stinger collapsed from self-induced poisoning. The crowd went wild with excitement. Maya had won again using knowledge and planning rather than physical combat. Her third opponent was Phantom, an energy being that could phase in and out of solid matter at will. Most fighters could not even touch Phantom, let alone defeat him. The combat zone was a simple circular platform with no obstacles or environmental hazards to exploit. Maya spent days before this fight studying energy patterns and frequency fluctuations. She discovered that Phantom's phasing ability created detectable disturbances in the electromagnetic spectrum. During the fight, she focused entirely on pattern recognition, predicting where Phantom would appear next based on energy readings the crowd could not even see when Phantom materialized. For an attack, Maya was already in position to counter. She did not fight him directly, but instead used his own momentum and timing against him. After several failed attacks, Phantom became frustrated and made increasingly predictable moves until Maya was able to trap him in a feedback loop of his own energy. The fourth fight presented Maya with 5 coordinated hunters called the Pack. These Volf-like beings had evolved to work together with perfect teamwork and communication. They had never been defeated because they supported each other and covered each other's weaknesses. Maya's strategy for this fight was psychological warfare. Instead of trying to fight all 5 at once, she began talking to them during combat, analyzing their pack dynamics and relationships. She identified the alpha leader and the weakest member, then began manipulating their natural competitive instincts. "Your alpha is favoring the left fighter over the right one," Maya called out while dodging their coordinated attacks. "He doesn't trust the smaller one to handle important attacks. The beta female is making decisions without consulting the alpha," she continued. "That's against pack hierarchy." Within minutes, Maya had the pack members questioning each other's loyalty and capabilities. Their perfect coordination broke down as suspicion and competition replaced cooperation. Soon they were fighting among themselves instead of focusing on Maya. Her 5th opponent was Mindrender, a telepathic warrior who could read thoughts and predict his enemies' moves before they made them. This was considered an impossible fight, because Mindrender had never faced an opponent whose mind he could not penetrate, but Maya had been studying human brain patterns and neural complexity during her preparation time. She discovered that human thoughts were uniquely chaotic and multilayered compared to other species. While most alien minds followed logical, predictable patterns, human brains constantly generated random thoughts, memories, and associations. When Mindrender tried to read Maya's mind during their fight, he encountered something unprecedented, a storm of contradictory thoughts, memories, plans, and random associations all happening simultaneously. Human creativity and imagination created so much mental noise that Mindrender could not find Maya's actual intentions among all the chaos. Worse, the complexity of Maya's thought patterns actually gave Mindrender a severe headache. After 5 minutes of trying to penetrate her mental defenses, he surrendered rather than risk permanent damage to his telepathic abilities. Her final opponent was Champion Gorvak, a strategic genius from a species known throughout the galaxy for their tactical brilliance. Gorvik had been undefeated for 20 years and had studied every possible combat scenario and strategy. As Maya faced Gorvik in the final arena, she made a decision that shocked everyone present. Halfway through the fight, just as Gorvak was demonstrating his superior tactical planning, Maya stopped fighting and sat down in the center of the platform. "I forfeit this combat," she announced to the stunned crowd. Gorvik paused in confusion. "You surrender?" "No," Maya replied. "I challenge you to a different kind of battle. Not strength against strength, but mind against mind. Prove your strategic genius by solving a problem that has no perfect solution." Maya then presented Gorvik with a complex scenario involving resource management, multiple competing priorities, and ethical considerations that had no clear right answer. The problem required not just tactical thinking, but creativity, flexibility, and the ability to balance competing demands. For the first time in 20 years, Champion Gorvik encountered a challenge that could not be solved through superior planning and logical analysis. Maya had created a test that required human-style thinking, the ability to find workable solutions in impossible situations after an hour of struggle. Gorvik acknowledged that Maya's approach to problem-solving was fundamentally different and potentially superior to his own methods. Maya had not just won her fights. She had demonstrated that humans possessed capabilities that the Confederation had never encountered before: adaptability, creativity, and the ability to find unexpected solutions to impossible problems. But her real victory was not in the arena. During the week of fights, Maya had been building something much more important than a combat record. With her final victory complete, Maya stood in the center of the arena as thousands of alien beings cheered her name. But she was not finished. During her week of fighting, she had been building something far more important than a reputation. As a warrior, Arena Master Vorth descended to the combat platform with his retinue of Confederation officials. His expression was carefully controlled, but Maya could see the anger and fear in his multiple eyes. She had won all 5 fights as agreed, which meant humanity was now entitled to full Confederation membership. "The human has completed the trials," Vorth announced to the crowd. "According to our agreement, her species will be granted membership status and assigned appropriate territories and responsibilities within the Confederation." Maya shook her head. "That's not what I want." The crowd noise diminished as beings leaned forward to hear what she would say next. Vorth's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Explain yourself, human. During my time here, I've learned that your arena system isn't really about determining species worth." Maya said, her voice carrying clearly through the sound amplifiers. "It's about maintaining the existing power structure by keeping certain species down and others on top." Murmurs began spreading through the crowd as representatives from dozens of species heard their suspicions confirmed. Maya continued, "I've talked to prisoners from 47 different species over the past week. Most of them are here not because they're inferior, but because they pose potential challenges to Confederation control. The arena is a tool for suppression disguised as fair evaluation." "You speak dangerous words, human," Vorth warned. "I speak true words," Maya replied. "And I'm not the only one who knows it." At Maya's signal, something unprecedented happened in the arena. Representatives from multiple species in the audience stood up simultaneously. Milani traders, Sisk warriors, crystalline entities from the Outer Rim, and dozens of others rose to their feet in a coordinated display of unity. Maya had not just been fighting during her week in the arena, she had been organizing these species. "And many others have agreed to form a new alliance," Maya announced. "Not based on domination and suppression, but on cooperation and mutual benefit." Vorth's 6 arms clenched into fists. "You cannot simply declare independence from Confederation authority. We have the military power to crush any rebellion." "Do you?" Maya asked. "Because I've been studying your power structure, and I think you might be surprised by how many of your loyal species are actually ready for change." More beings stood in the audience. Not just the recent prisoners, but established Confederation members who had grown tired of the current system. Engineering species who designed the technology, support species who maintained the infrastructure, even some warrior species who had grown bored with easy dominance. Maya had identified something that Confederation leadership had missed. Their empire was held together more by habit and fear than by genuine loyalty or superior force. "I propose a different kind of test," Maya said. "Not combat in an arena, but cooperation in building something better. Let's see which approach creates more prosperity and security for everyone involved." The crowd was now in chaos as beings from dozens of species began talking, arguing, and debating among themselves. Some remained loyal to the Confederation, but many others were clearly intrigued by Maya's proposal. Arena Master Vorth realized he was losing control of the situation. "Silence!" he roared, his amplified voice echoing through the arena. "The human's victories earn her species membership, nothing more. She has no authority to restructure Confederation policy." Actually, came a new voice from the arena's upper levels. She might. Everyone looked up to see High Counselor Vex descending toward the combat platform. Vex was one of the most senior officials in the Confederation government, and his presence meant that Maya's victories had attracted attention at the highest levels. "High Counselor," Vorth said with obvious relief, "I trust you are here to restore proper order." "I am here to prevent a civil war," Vex replied. "The humans' activities have created a situation that threatens the stability of our entire government structure." Maya looked up at High Counselor Vex with interest. He was different from the other Confederation officials she had met, older, more thoughtful, and clearly more intelligent. "The Confederation High Command has been monitoring developments here," Vex continued. "We initially viewed the human trials as routine entertainment. However, her victories and the political organization she has accomplished represent something unprecedented. She must be stopped before her influence spreads further," Vorth insisted. "Perhaps," Vex said. "Or perhaps we should consider why. Her ideas have found such ready acceptance among so many species." Maya seized the opportunity. "High Counselor, I believe the galaxy would be more stable and prosperous if we worked together instead of maintaining artificial hierarchies based on combat prowess." "An interesting theory, human. But theory and practice are different things." "Then let's test it practically," Maya proposed. "Give us a sector of space where species can voluntarily join a cooperative alliance, instead of being forced into Confederation membership. Let's see which system produces better results over time." High Counselor Vex was quiet for several long moments as he considered the proposal. Maya could see him weighing political considerations, the risk of allowing a competing system versus the risk of forcing a civil war that might tear the Confederation apart. "The High Command has discussed this possibility," Vex said finally. "A limited experiment in alternative governance, closely monitored and subject to termination if it proves destabilizing." Arena Master Vorth looked shocked. "High Counselor, you cannot seriously consider—" "I can and I am," Vex interrupted. "The human has demonstrated capabilities we did not anticipate. Her organizational abilities, strategic thinking, and talent for building coalitions represent something new in our galactic experience." Maya felt a surge of hope, but she also knew this was the most dangerous moment yet. If she pushed too hard or asked for too much, she could lose everything. "What exactly are you proposing, High Counselor?" "A test sector containing 50 systems, including those represented by species in your new alliance. You will have 5 galactic standard years to prove that cooperation produces better results than traditional Confederation structure. If you succeed, we will consider expanding the experiment. If you fail, all participating species return to standard membership status." Maya looked around at the representatives from dozens of species who had stood with her. She could see hope in their expressions, but also fear of the enormous responsibility they would be taking on. "We accept," Maya said. The crowd erupted in noise as the implications sank in. Some beings cheered, others protested, and many simply looked stunned by the rapid political changes. As the arena gradually emptied and beings began making plans for the new future they had just created, Maya found herself standing with Dr. Helen, Parker, and several other humans who had been watching from the holding areas. "Maya," Helen said quietly, "do you realize what you've just committed us to?" "I've committed us to building something better than what we found," Maya replied. "Humans are good at that." She looked up at the viewing screens that showed departing ships from dozens of different species. Many were heading toward the test sector to begin the great experiment in cooperative governance. Maya Johnson had come to the arena as a prisoner facing almost certain death. She was leaving as the architect of a new form of galactic civilization. But the real test was just beginning. 6 months later, Maya stood on the observation deck of the Cooperative Alliance's first joint research station through the viewing ports. She could see ships from 37 different species working together on projects that would benefit everyone involved. The experiment was succeeding beyond anyone's expectations. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now sharing technology and resources. Worlds that had been exploited under Confederation rule were now thriving as equal partners. Maya had proven that humans brought something unique to the galaxy: the ability to see possibilities where others saw only problems, and the determination to build bridges where others built walls. The arena still existed, but now it served a different purpose. Instead of forcing species to fight for survival, it had become a place where beings came to test new ideas, learn from each other, and celebrate the diversity that made their alliance stronger. Maya Johnson had taken control of the arena in 5 minutes, but she had spent those 5 minutes changing the entire galaxy.